Granddaughter, run from these people immediately. Get up in the morning and go to your mother-in-law's house and you'll see everything my late grandmother told me in a dream the day before the wedding. And when I drove up to my mother-in-law's house, I froze at what I saw. But before we begin, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you, and enjoy listening. I woke to the sound of my alarm and reached for my phone. 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning. June sun outside the window. The city was already going about its usual life. I got out of bed and went to the mirror. 30 years old. In 3 weeks I'd be getting married. It was strange to realize that. I'd lived alone for so long, grown used to my independence, the quiet in my apartment, to not having to report to anyone. And now everything would change. I would have a husband, a family, a new life. My name is Isabella Navarro. I've been the chief accountant at a construction company for 8 years. The salary is good and steady. I live in a 2-room apartment in the city center. I inherited it from my parents. My father died 6 years ago, and a year later my mother moved to live with her sister in the provinces and stayed there. She transferred the apartment to me. Real estate downtown is expensive. I understood that and took care of it. All my life my grandmother taught me to be strong, not to depend on men, not to bend, not to tolerate other people's arrogance. Grandma raised 2 children on her own, worked 3 jobs, built a house with her own hands. When I was 10, she often repeated, "Trust people, but verify their words by their deeds." Not everyone is who they claim to be. Grandma died 4 years ago, quietly, in her sleep. I was 26, and I lost the person closest to me. My mother loved me, of course, but Grandma was special. She understood me without words. She could feel when I was unwell, even if I kept quiet. Sometimes I really miss her advice. I went to the kitchen, turned on the kettle, and picked up my phone. 2 messages from Sebastian. "Good morning, my love. How did you sleep? This afternoon we'll stop by Mom's. She wants to discuss the banquet menu." Sebastian Montero, 37 years old. My fiancé. We met 11 months ago completely by chance. He came to our company on business, processing some documents for his company. I was sitting at reception checking invoices. He was waiting for the director. We started talking. Sebastian was charming. Tall, fit, dark-haired with a touch of gray, brown eyes, a pleasant smile, well-dressed, gray suit, white shirt, polished shoes. He spoke confidently, with a light sense of humor. He told me he supplied industrial equipment and had his own small business. An office, a warehouse outside the city, several regular clients. After his meeting with the director, he asked me out for coffee. I agreed. We spent 2 hours in the cafe, and the time flew by. Sebastian was an interesting conversationalist. He asked questions, listened attentively, joked just enough. At the end he asked for my phone number. We started dating. At first once a week, movies, restaurants, walks along the embankment. Sebastian brought flowers, but not every time. He gave compliments, but not in a cloying way. He behaved like a grown man who knew exactly what he wanted. I liked that. After a string of failed relationships in my 20s, I was tired of immature guys who didn't know where they were going. After a month and a half of dating, Sebastian suggested I meet his mother. I was a little nervous. Meeting the parents is always a serious step. But he reassured me. He said his mom was kind and that she would like me. Consuelo Montero lived in a private house on the outskirts of the city. When we pulled up, I saw a neat 1-story house with a green fence. A well-kept garden with citrus trees and vegetable beds. Everything was clean and tidy. Consuelo met us at the gate. A woman of about 60, short and slender, with short gray hair and a piercing look. Simply dressed, dark sweater, black trousers. A smile on her lips, but her eyes studied me intently. Inside it smelled of fresh baking. The table was set, empanadas with meat, salads, juice. Consuelo sat me in the place of honor and started asking questions, where I worked, as what, how much I earned, whether I had my own place, whether my parents were alive. The questions were direct, without ceremony. I answered honestly. I'm an accountant, steady salary, my own apartment downtown. My father passed away, my mother lives in the provinces. Consuelo nodded, listened, occasionally asked for details again. At the end of lunch, she said she liked me. That Sebastian needed a serious, hard-working woman, not some empty airhead. That she had long dreamed of a daughter-in-law because her son was her only child and it was time for him to start a family. We left late in the evening. Sebastian apologized for his mother's grilling, said she'd had a hard life, her husband died early, she raised her son alone, so she's cautious. I understood. Every mother wants to know who her child is going to tie their life to. After that visit, we kept seeing each other. Sometimes Sebastian came to me, sometimes I went to him. He rented a one-room apartment on the outskirts, said he'd sold his own place a year and a half earlier, invested the money in expanding the business, and was renting until it paid off. The apartment was modest, sofa, table, wardrobe, nothing extra. 7 months into our relationship, Sebastian started talking about a wedding. He said we weren't kids anymore and it was time to start a family. I wasn't in a hurry. I wanted to get to know him better, but he was persistent, gave gifts, kept saying he loved me and wanted to be together for life. I thought it over and agreed. I was 30. All my friends had long been married and were raising children. I was tired of being alone. And Sebastian seemed reliable. He proposed in a restaurant on the riverfront, went down on one knee, took out a ring, asked me to be his wife. I said yes. People at the neighboring tables applauded. Sebastian was happy. Consuelo was happy too when we went to tell her the news. She hugged me, said she would finally have a daughter and had long awaited this. We set the date, June 21st. There were 3 weeks until the celebration. There was a lot to do: book a restaurant, send invitations, buy a dress, prepare the paperwork. I started with the restaurant. Sebastian said there wouldn't be many guests, about 30 people from both sides. I found a cozy place in the center, inexpensive but decent. I booked a banquet and paid a deposit. The manager gave me a list of dishes to choose from and said the final menu had to be approved a week before the event. Then, the dress. I didn't want anything puffy. I chose a simple cream-colored knee-length dress, no lace or sparkles, beige low heels. I arranged a bouquet with a florist I knew, white roses and greenery. There were few guests. On my side, my friend Camila, a few co-workers, my mother's sister from the provinces. About 12 people in total. On Sebastian's side about the same, his mother, a couple of friends, some distant relatives. A modest wedding without fuss. Just what I wanted. Everything was going well, but sometimes little things bothered me. For example, Sebastian never invited me to his office. I suggested a couple of times that we stop by his work, see where he spent his days. He refused. Said it was a mess, under renovation, inconvenient to receive anyone. Promised to show me later, when everything was in order. And his phone. Sebastian never left it unattended. He always kept it with him, even when he went to shower. When I once asked why, he laughed and said he was expecting an important call from a client. In his business you can't miss calls. Another thing that alarmed me was that he rarely talked about work. When I asked questions, he answered in generalities. Things are going well, clients are happy, orders are coming in. But there were no specifics: who those clients were, what exactly he supplied, where that warehouse was. He answered evasively and quickly changed the subject. But I tried not to dwell on it. Everyone has a right to personal space. Maybe he just didn't like discussing work at home. Many people separate personal life from professional life. The kettle boiled. I made tea, sat down at the table, and opened my to-do list for the day. We needed to go to Consuelo's to discuss the menu, then stop by the restaurant to clarify details. In the evening, meet with Camila to try on the dress. My phone buzzed. A message from Sebastian. I'll pick you up at 11. Mom's expecting us for lunch. I replied briefly. Okay, I'll be ready. Sebastian arrived on time. I went downstairs and got into his car. He kissed me on the cheek. How are you? Good. And you? Me too. Mom's already cooking. She said she wants to show you the family photos. We drove across the whole city. On the way, Sebastian talked about work, that he'd gotten a new major client and would soon sign a lucrative contract. I listened and was happy for him. When we pulled up to Consuelo's house, she was already standing at the gate. She was holding a towel. Apparently she just dried her hands after cooking. Come in, lunch is ready. We went into the house. On the table were plates of soup, cutlets, and rice. It smelled of fried onions. Consuelo seated us and ladled out the soup. Well, my children, the big day is soon, isn't it? Is everything ready? Almost, I replied. The restaurant is booked, the dress is bought, the guests are invited. And have you finalized the menu? Not yet. I wanted to consult with you. Consuelo took a thick notebook out of the sideboard and opened it to a bookmarked page. Here, I wrote down my suggestions. We must have tamales, ceviche, rice with chicken. You can order the cake from the bakery on the square. They do a good job there. I nodded and took notes. Consuelo clearly had experience organizing feasts. And what about alcohol? She asked. I was thinking of getting wine and champagne. Not too much. That won't be enough. You need tequila. Sebastian's guests prefer something stronger. I exchanged a glance with Sebastian. He shrugged. Mom, let's not go overboard. It's a wedding, not a booze-up. A wedding is a celebration, son. People should relax and have fun. All right, we'll get a little tequila, I agreed, just to avoid an argument. We finished lunch. Consuelo cleared the dishes, then brought out an old photo album. Isabella, I want to show you our family photos, so you know what family you're joining. We sat on the couch. Consuelo opened the album and began turning the pages. The photos were old, black and white. A young Consuelo with her husband, little Sebastian in his father's arms. Family celebrations. This is my husband, Victor. She pointed at a photo. He died when Sebastian was 15. Heart attack. I was left alone with a child. I'm very sorry. It's all right, we managed. I worked 2 jobs, Sebastian studied. He grew up to be a good man. She turned more pages. Sebastian as a teenager, Sebastian as a student, Sebastian with friends. Then a page with a woman, young, fair-haired, in a bright dress, standing next to Sebastian, smiling. And who is this? I asked. Consuelo quickly turned the page. Oh, just acquaintances. I noticed Sebastian tense up, his face hardened. Mom, why are you showing old photos? It's not interesting. Why not? Isabella should know our history. But he was already getting up. Isabella, we have to go. I've got things to do. We said goodbye to Consuelo and left. On the way I asked, who was that woman in the photo? The fair-haired one in the bright dress. Sebastian shrugged. I don't remember, maybe a friend of my mother's? But in the photo she was standing with you. So what? We posed with lots of people. Isabella, it was a long time ago, not important. He clearly didn't want to talk about it. I didn't press, but the uneasy feeling remained. In the evening I met with Camila, my friend from school, the only person I fully trusted. We sat in her kitchen, drinking tea. How's the planning going? Camila asked. Everything's on track. The restaurant is booked, the dress is bought. We were at my mother-in-law's today discussing the menu. Camila poured more tea. And are you sure Sebastian is who he says he is? I frowned. What do you mean? Well, have you seen his office, the warehouse where he works? He says the office is under renovation. He'll show me later. Isabella, you've been dating almost a year and you've never seen where he works? I trust him. Camila looked at me intently. Listen, I don't want to upset you, but be careful. Check him out before you get married. How would I check? First, find out if he actually has a registered business. You can look that up online. Then go to his office unannounced. See for yourself. Camila, that's like spying. It's precaution. Isabella, you're giving him your life. You have the right to know whom you're giving it to. I finished my tea and stood up. All right, I'll think about it. Don't think too long, 3 weeks until the wedding. I left Camila's with a heavy heart, her words stuck in my head. Maybe she was right, maybe I really should check on Sebastian. The next day, Sunday, I decided to act. Sebastian had gone on business to a neighboring city and said he wouldn't be back until evening. It was my chance. I remembered he had once mentioned his company's name, Technoservice. I opened my laptop, went to the corporate registry website, and entered the company name. Nothing came up. I tried again, this time entering the surname Montero, still nothing. Maybe the company was registered under a different name, or it was a sole proprietorship. I tried different options, but the result was the same, nothing. I leaned back in my chair. The company didn't exist, at least officially. Maybe he just worked off the books. Many people do that to avoid extra taxes. It didn't necessarily mean he was a fraud. Maybe he just didn't want the bureaucracy. I tried to calm myself, but the doubts wouldn't let go. The next day, Monday, I took a day off from work. I said I needed to deal with wedding matters. In reality, I decided to go to the industrial zone where, according to Sebastian, his office was located. Sebastian had said the office was on Industrial Street. The industrial zone was small, several blocks of warehouses and production facilities. I got there around 10 in the morning, drove along the main street, then turned onto Industrial. Old buildings stood on both sides, some abandoned. A few cars, trucks by the warehouses. I looked for a sign that said Techno Service. I drove the street from end to end. I didn't see any sign. I stopped near a building with a guard post. I got out and went up to the guard. "Hello, could you tell me where the Techno Service office is around here?" The guard, an older man with a mustache, scratched his head. "Techno Service, never heard of it. What do they do?" "They supply equipment. Lots of folks do all sorts of things here, but I don't know that company." "Are you sure the address is right?" "That's what I was told. Maybe they opened recently?" "Ask at administration, building 23. That's where all the companies are registered." "Thank you." I found building 23. Inside was a small office with a woman at a desk. She was typing something on the computer. "Excuse me, may I ask a question?" She looked up. "I'm listening." "I'm looking for a company called Techno Service. Are they located here?" The woman opened a folder and leafed through some papers. "Techno Service, no, we don't have a company by that name." "Maybe it was registered recently?" "I've got the list for the last 3 years. No such company." "And do you know a director named Sebastian Montero?" She checked the papers again and then shook her head. "No. Maybe they are somewhere else." "Maybe, but if they work in the industrial zone, they should be on the list." I walked out of the building with a heavy feeling. The company did not exist. The office did not exist. So where did Sebastian work? Or did he not work at all? I got into the car and dialed Sebastian's number. The ringing tone. Once, twice, 3 times. He did not pick up. I texted him, "Call me when you're free." No reply. I drove home, thinking about what to do. Ask him directly? But what if he lied again? Keep checking on my own? But how? At home I called Camila. "Camila, I checked. The company doesn't exist." I suspected as much. "Isabella, what are you going to do?" "I don't know. Talk to him, I guess." "And what will you say? That you spied on him?" "I have a right to know what my future husband does." "Of course you do. Just think carefully about how you start the conversation. And be ready for him to get angry." "I understand." That evening Sebastian came to my place. He looked tired but satisfied. "How was your trip?" I asked. "Great. I signed a contract with a new client. Business will be even better now." I poured tea and sat across from him at the table. "Sebastian, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Where exactly is your office? The exact address?" His eyebrows rose. "Why do you need it?" "I want to know." "I already told you, Industrial Street." "What building number?" He hesitated. "I don't remember exactly. Something like 27 or 29. "Isabella, why do you need this?" "I want to come to your workplace. To see where you spend your time." Sebastian frowned. "It's a mess there, renovation going on." "You've been saying that for 6 months." "Because the renovation is taking longer, the builders are dragging it out." "Sebastian, I went to Industrial Street today. I drove the entire street. There is no Techno Service there." Silence. He stared at me without blinking. "You were spying on me?" "I was verifying your words." "Isabella, what the hell? I have the right to know where my future husband works." Sebastian stood up and paced the room. "You don't trust me." "I do trust you, but I want proof." "If you trust me, why check?" "Because you avoid answering questions." You never take me to your office, never show the warehouse, never explain your work. It is strange. He stopped and looked at me. Fine. You want the truth? There is no office. I work remotely. I have no fixed workspace. Everything is done online and over the phone. I meet clients in cafes or at their offices. I rent storage only when I need it. That's the truth. I looked at him. Why didn't you say so immediately? Because it sounds unimpressive. I wanted to look successful, with an office, with staff. But in reality, it's just me working for myself. Then why isn't your company registered? I work as a sole proprietor. I didn't want to register a corporation. Too many expenses. Show me the registration certificate. Isabella, enough. You're interrogating me. I want to see documents. Sebastian clenched his jaw. They are at home, in my rented apartment. Then you will show them tomorrow. Sebastian sharply turned, grabbed his jacket. You know what? If you don't trust me, maybe we shouldn't get married? He walked out, slamming the door. I stayed at the table. Everything inside tightened. This was our first real fight, and I wasn't sure I did the right thing. The next day Sebastian did not call. I did not text either. I waited. In the evening I got a message from Consuelo. Isabella, Sebastian is upset. He says you don't trust him. What happened? I wrote back briefly. Just a misunderstanding. Everything will be fine. She replied again. Come to my place tomorrow. We will talk. The next day I went to Consuelo's. She met me at the door. Her face was serious. Come in, dear. We sat in the kitchen. She poured tea. Isabella, Sebastian told me. You checked his business? Yes. Why? I wanted to make sure he wasn't lying to me. Consuelo sighed. I understand your worry, but Sebastian is not a liar. Yes, he doesn't have a big office. Yes, he works modestly, but he is an honest man who earns with his own hands. Why didn't he tell me right away? Because he was embarrassed. Men want to seem successful, especially in front of a woman. Isabella, do you really plan to marry him? Yes. Then trust him. You cannot build a marriage without trust. I nodded. She was right. Maybe I really had gone too far. Consuelo stood, opened a drawer, and took out a folder. Here, look, these are copies of his documents. Certificate of entrepreneurship, tax returns, contracts with clients. She put the folder in front of me. I opened it and flipped through it. There were documents indeed. Registration certificate for individual entrepreneurship in the name of Sebastian Montero. Tax declarations, a few contracts. I felt relief. Thank you for showing me. You are welcome. Now will you calm down? Yes. I drove away from Consuelo's with a lighter heart. So Sebastian wasn't a fraud. He was just embarrassed by his modest situation. I understood that. In the evening I called Sebastian. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have doubted you. He was silent for a few seconds. All right, I was wrong too. I should have told the truth right away. Let's forget this. Let's. We made up. The wedding preparations continued, but a few days later something strange happened. I was at work checking documents when my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello. A woman's voice, soft, cautious. Hello. Is this Isabella Navarro? Yes. Who is speaking? My name is Patricia. You don't know me, but I know you. How? Pause. You are going to marry Sebastian Montero? I tensed. Yes. How do you know? That's not important. I want to warn you. Do not marry him. Why? Because he is a con artist. He did this before. To me. I froze. My hands turned cold. Please explain. The woman sighed. 2 years ago we were together. He proposed to me. We got married. A month after the wedding he asked me to sell my apartment. He said he needed money for business. I sold it, gave him the money, and he disappeared. I could not say a word. I tried to find him. I filed a lawsuit, but there was no proof. He did everything legally clean. I was left with nothing. Where are you now? I live with my parents, work as a shop cashier, started life from scratch. Why did you decide to call me? Because I saw your wedding announcement by chance on social media. I recognized Sebastian in the photos and realized he is doing it again. Isabella, Please, do not repeat my mistake. How did you get my number? I found it online. You're listed as a contact on your company's website. I tightened my grip on the phone. Patricia, can we meet? I need to hear the whole story. Pause. All right, but don't tell Sebastian. I won't. We agreed to meet the next day in a cafe downtown. I wrote down the time and place, said goodbye, hung up, and sat there frozen, unable to move. What was that? Who was this Patricia? Was she telling the truth? I opened my laptop and searched for Patricia's name and the last name Montero. Nothing. I tried different combinations. Again, nothing. Maybe she was lying? Maybe she was just some ex who wanted to ruin Sebastian's life? But what if she was telling the truth? I picked up my phone to call Camila, but stopped. First I would meet Patricia, hear her story, then decide. The next day I took my lunch break early and went to the cafe. I arrived first, ordered coffee, and sat by the window. 10 minutes later a woman walked in, about 32, thin, in a simple gray jacket and jeans, short dark hair, pale face, no makeup. She looked around, spotted me, and approached. Isabella? Yes, Patricia. She nodded and sat down across from me. The waitress brought a menu, but Patricia waved it away. I don't want anything. We sat in silence for a few seconds. Then I spoke. Please, tell me what happened. Patricia reached into her bag for cigarettes, then remembered smoking wasn't allowed and put them back. We met 2 years ago. I was working at a bank then, living alone in a one-bedroom apartment. Sebastian appeared like a prince. Charming, attentive. Told me he had a business, that everything was good. After 6 months he proposed. I said yes. What happened after the wedding? For the first month everything was fine. We lived at my place. Then he started saying he needed money to expand the business, a big contract, a good opportunity, and asked me to sell my apartment, promised we would buy a better one in 6 months. And you sold it? Yes. I trusted him. We sold the apartment. I gave him the money. He said he would put it in the account and launch the business. And then? He disappeared. A week after getting the money he changed his phone number and moved out. I tried to find him through his mother, but Consuelo said he went on a business trip and would come back soon. I waited a month, then realized I'd been deceived. You went to the police? Yes, but legally everything was clean. I sold the apartment willingly, gave him the money willingly. I couldn't prove fraud. He had some forged papers that supposedly showed he returned the money to me. I lost the case. Patricia lowered her head. I was left with nothing. I had to move back in with my parents. Start over. I'm very sorry. Isabella, I don't want the same thing to happen to you. Sebastian is dangerous. He is a professional. He gains trust, gets married, takes everything, and disappears. But he showed me documents. He has a business. He showed me documents too. They turned out to be fake. Something clenched inside me. Could this really be true? Patricia, do you know if he had other victims? I heard there was a girl before me, Esperanza, but I couldn't find her. I wrote down the name. Thank you for warning me. Please be careful, and don't tell him we met. I won't. Patricia left. I stayed sitting there, holding my now cold coffee. What should I do? Believe this woman? Or was she just bitter and trying to get revenge? I took my phone and called Camila. Camila, I need help. Camila came over half an hour later. We sat in my kitchen, and I told her everything. The call from Patricia, the cafe meeting, the story about the apartment. Camila listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was silent for a long time. Isabella, this is serious. If this woman is telling the truth, you're in danger. But how do I know if she is? Maybe she's just a jealous ex trying to ruin things? We need to check. Find this Esperanza she mentioned. If we find another victim, then it's a pattern. How do we find her? Social media. Let's try. We opened my laptop and went to a social network. Camila searched Esperanza Montero. Several results appeared. We started checking profiles one by one. Most were closed or inactive. On the 5th one, we stopped. A young woman, around 28, smiling in the photo. The profile was open. We scrolled through her pictures. Old posts. 3 years ago. The girl with a man. I leaned in and felt a chill. It was Sebastian. Camila, that's him, right? Yes. Look, here they are again, and here. Camila scrolled further. The post stopped 3 years ago. The last one read, "Happy, getting married to the man I love," with a photo of a ring. And nothing after that? No. The account is frozen. She hasn't logged in for 3 years. Maybe she just quit social media. Or something happened to her. Camila wrote down Esperanza's name and maiden name. Then she tried to find relatives. Through her friends list we found a profile marked as Esperanza's mother. Camila messaged her, "Hello, we are looking for your daughter Esperanza. Could you help us contact her?" The reply came in an hour. "Who are you? Why do you need my daughter?" Camila wrote, "We are friends of acquaintances. We would like to talk to her. Esperanza doesn't talk to anyone. Leave her alone. Please, it's important. We won't harm her." A long silence. Then came a number. "Here is her number, but she doesn't like calls from strangers." I copied it and thanked her. Then I dialed it. The phone rang. Long. No answer. I tried again. Still just ringing. She didn't answer. Try later. I put the phone down on the table. "Camila, what am I supposed to do? Less than 3 weeks until the wedding. Guests are invited. The restaurant is paid for. Cancel the wedding." Just like that? Based on one woman's story? Based on facts. Sebastian hid his marriage. He never showed you his real business. His ex-wife lost her apartment. Another woman disappeared. That's not coincidence. But the documents. Consuelo showed you documents that could easily be fake. Isabella, you're not a forensic expert. Can you tell real documents from forged ones? No. Exactly. Listen, here's what we do. I know someone, a private investigator. He'll check Sebastian completely. Find everything. Then you will know who you're dealing with. A private investigator is expensive. Not as expensive as losing your apartment. Isabella, this is your life. Your property. You need the truth. I thought for a moment. Camila was right. Better spend money now than lose everything later. All right. Give me his number. Camila called the investigator right in front of me. His name was Rodrigo. His voice was calm, businesslike. "Rodrigo, my friend needs help. To check someone before a wedding." Understood. Name? Sebastian Montero, 37. What do you need? Everything. Background, marriage history, business, debts, criminal records. Everything you can find. Deadline? As soon as possible. The wedding is in 2.5 weeks. I will do it in a week. Payment after the result. How much? He named the price. It wasn't cheap, but I agreed. Camila gave him my number. I sent Rodrigo a photo of Sebastian, the addresses, everything I knew. He confirmed he received it. Now I just had to wait. The next days were tense. I continued preparing for the wedding, meeting Sebastian, but inside me something was gnawing. Every time he spoke about work or the future, I analyzed every word, searching for lies. Sebastian didn't notice, or pretended not to. We discussed wedding details, cake tasting, banquet program. Everything looked normal. 3 days later I called Esperanza again. This time someone answered. "Hello?" A quiet, wary female voice. "Hello, is this Esperanza?" "Yes, who's speaking?" "My name is Isabella. I'm sorry to bother you. Your mother gave me your number." Pause. Then. "Why?" "I would like to talk to you. It's important." "About what?" "About Sebastian Montero." Silence. Long. Heavy. "I don't want to talk about him. Please. I really need your help. I'm marrying him soon." Silence again. "Don't marry him." "Why?" "He will ruin your life." "Esperanza, could we meet and talk in person?" Pause. "All right, but not in your city. I don't want to take any risks." "Where do you live?" "In a village 50 kilometers from you. I can give you the address." I wrote it down. We agreed to meet the day after tomorrow, on Saturday. I arrived at the village at 10 in the morning. A small place, private houses, quiet streets. Esperanza lived in a little house on the outskirts. She met me at the gate. A young woman, about 28, thin, pale, dark hair pulled into a ponytail, wearing casual sweatpants and a gray sweater. "Come in." We went inside. It was modest. Old furniture, tile on the floor, faded curtains on the windows. Esperanza led me to the kitchen and put the kettle on. "Have a seat." We sat at the table. Esperanza poured boiling water into cups and added tea bags. "So you fell for his bait too?" "I don't know. I'm trying to find out the truth." Esperanza took a sip of tea. "I met him 3 years ago. I was working in a shop then, renting a room. Sebastian appeared like a savior. He helped with money, gave me gifts, said all the right things. After 6 months he proposed. I said yes." "What happened after the wedding?" "We lived at my place, in the room. A month later he said he'd found a good apartment option, but we needed money. I had a small apartment my grandmother left me. I sold it. I gave him the money, and he promised to buy a bigger place. And then he disappeared. A week later. The phone didn't answer, he wasn't at the address. I went to his mother. Consuelo said he'd gone on a business trip and would be back soon. I waited a month, then I understood." "Did you go to the police?" "Yes, but there was no evidence. I willingly sold the apartment, willingly gave him the money. On paper everything was clean. He even forged some IOUs saying he'd returned the money to me. The police couldn't do anything." "Where is he now?" "I don't know. I never saw him again after that. I moved here, to my husband's parents. Yes, I got married again, to a good man. We live quietly, modestly." "So you've recovered?" "Financially, no. I'm trying to, emotionally, but the scar remains. Isabella, don't repeat my mistake. This man is dangerous." I wrote down everything she told me and thanked her for being candid. When I was leaving, Esperanza walked me to the gate. "Be careful, and if you decide to expose him, I'm ready to testify." "Thank you." I drove home with a heavy heart. So Patricia had told the truth. Sebastian was indeed a con man. He'd done it twice already, and I was supposed to be the third. The next day Rodrigo called. "Isabella, the information is ready. Can we meet?" "When?" "Tonight. At the cafe on Central Square." "I'll be there." I arrived at 7 in the evening. Rodrigo was already sitting at a window table, a man of about 50, graying hair, a calm face. There was a folder in front of him. I sat down, and he handed it to me. "Here's everything I found. I warn you, it's not a pretty picture." I opened the folder and started reading. Montero, Sebastian, 37 years old, 2 official marriages. First marriage to Esperanza, 3 years ago, divorced after 4 months. Second marriage to Patricia, 2 years ago, divorced after 3 months. Both marriages ended after the wives sold their property. Next came a list of debts. Loans at 4 banks totaling over $100,000. Delinquencies, enforcement proceedings. Sebastian owed everyone. Then, business information. The company Technoservice is not registered. The sole proprietorship in Montero's name was closed a year ago due to debts. He hasn't been officially employed for the last 2 years. I turned the page. Photos. Sebastian with different women, young, attractive. Captions. Marina, Isabella, Natalie. All photos from recent months. These are his new targets? Rodrigo nodded. Several. In parallel with you, he's seeing at least 2 other women. One lives in a nearby city, the other here. I boiled inside. So I was just one of many? Who are they? Rodrigo pulled out another photo. A woman of about 30, tall, fair-haired. This is Valentina. She works as a real estate agent. She and Sebastian have been together for over a year. She helps him find victims. How? Through real estate databases. She can see who owns apartments. Sebastian picks single women, gets to know them, wins their trust. So it's a professional scheme? Yes. Sebastian and Valentina work together, possibly with his mother's involvement. Consuelo is in on it too. I closed the folder. Everything became clear. I was the next victim in a well-oiled scheme. Rodrigo, thank you for your work. You're welcome. My advice, Isabella, go to the police. With this material they can open a case. That's what I'll do. I left the cafe and got into my car. My hands were shaking. Rage boiled inside me. How dare he? How dare he deceive me? I pulled out my phone and called Camila. Camila, you were right. He's a con man. I have all the evidence. What will you do? I'll cancel the wedding. Today. Good. Want me to come over? No, I'll handle it. Thank you. I drove home. On the way, I thought about how to structure the conversation with Sebastian, what to say, how to explain. At home I texted him, "Come over, we need to talk." He replied quickly, "I'll be there in an hour." I spent that hour pacing around the apartment. A storm of emotions, rage, hurt, disappointment, but I kept control. I wouldn't throw a fit, I would just state the facts and ask him to leave. Sebastian arrived exactly an hour later. He walked in smiling. "Hi, love. What did you want to talk about?" I stood in the middle of the living room with my arms crossed. "Sit down." He sat on the couch, still smiling. "Sebastian, I know everything." The smile didn't leave his face. "What do you know?" "About Esperanza, about Patricia, about Valentina, about the debts, about the fact that you don't have a business." Silence. He stared at me without blinking. The smile froze. "I checked you. I hired a detective. He found everything." Sebastian stood up. "Isabella, this is a misunderstanding. Let me explain." "No, there's nothing to explain. You're a con man. You wanted to marry me to take my apartment, just like you did with Esperanza and Patricia." His face changed, the smile vanished, his eyes turned cold. "So you were spying on me?" "I was protecting myself." "You suspicious bitch." I didn't flinch. My grandmother taught me not to fear male aggression. "Get out of my apartment. The wedding is off." Sebastian stepped toward me. "You think it's that simple? I invested time and money in you. You owe me. I don't owe you anything. Leave before I call the police." He grabbed my arm and squeezed hard. "You'll regret this." I yanked my arm free. "Leave." Sebastian looked at me for a few seconds, then spun around and stormed out, slamming the door. I stood in the middle of the room, breathing hard. That was it. It was over. The wedding was canceled. I picked up my phone and started messaging the guests. "Short notes. The wedding is canceled for personal reasons. My apologies." My friends started calling right away, asking what happened. I answered briefly. Some unpleasant facts came to light. I'll explain later. Then I called the restaurant. The manager was displeased but promised to refund half the deposit. That was done. Now I needed to go to the police. The next day I went to the station. The duty investigator listened to my story and looked over the documents Rodrigo had given me. "All right, we'll file the report, but I warn you, the case will be difficult." Sebastian operated with legal finesse. Proving fraud will be hard. But there are witnesses. Esperanza and Patricia are ready to testify. That will help. We'll question them. If they confirm, we'll open a case. I wrote a statement, listing all the facts I knew. The investigator said he'd contact me in a few days. I went home exhausted, lay down on the couch, and for the first time in many days allowed myself to relax. It was over. I was safe. But 2 days later something strange happened. In the evening the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole. A woman I didn't know stood on the landing. About 35, tall, fair-haired, well-dressed, black coat, leather gloves. I opened the door on the chain. "Yes? Isabella Navarro?" "Yes. Who are you?" The woman smiled, a cold, unpleasant smile. "My name is Valentina. I think you've heard of me." I recognized her from the photo in the investigator's report. Sebastian's lover. "What do you want?" "To talk." "May I come in?" "No. Say it here." Valentina shrugged. "As you wish." "Isabella, you made a mistake. Sebastian is very upset. He invested a lot of effort in you, and you betrayed him. He was the one deceiving me." "Deceiving you?" "He loved you. He wanted to start a family. He wanted to take my apartment." Valentina smirked. "And now what? You think you've won?" "Isabella, you're a naive woman. Sebastian won't back down so easily." "Is that a threat?" "No, a warning. He knows exactly how to deal with you, and your apartment will be his anyway." I slammed the door. My heart was pounding. What did she mean by that? I called the investigator and told him about Valentina's visit. He said he would summon her for questioning. But a day later something even worse happened. I came home from work and found the front door lock broken. The door was ajar. I pushed it open and walked in. The apartment was ransacked. Things strewn about, closets open, documents scattered on the floor. Someone had been looking for something. I pulled out my phone and called the police. They arrived 20 minutes later. They inspected the apartment and drew up a report. Nothing was taken, but they were clearly searching for something specific. What were they looking for? The officer asked. I don't know, maybe documents. What documents? I thought for a moment. The apartment papers. They were in the safe in the wardrobe. I checked. The safe was intact, not opened. Nothing had been found. The safe is intact, so this was intimidation. The officer advised me to change the locks and install an alarm system. I did just that. That same evening I called a locksmith, changed the locks, and ordered an alarm installation. Camila came to stay the night. She said she wouldn't leave me alone. We sat in the kitchen drinking tea. Isabella, they're serious. Sebastian and his mother are dangerous. You have to be careful. I know, but I won't back down. Let the police find them. And if they don't, they will. I have evidence and I have witnesses. The next day the investigator summoned me. He said he had questioned Esperanza and Patricia. Both confirmed my account. The case would now be forwarded to the court. Good. And have you found Sebastian? Not yet. He's gone into hiding, but we're looking. And Valentina? We questioned her. She denies everything. Says she's just an acquaintance of Sebastian and knows nothing about his affairs. But I have photos of them together. That's not proof of a crime. For now we can charge only Sebastian. And his mother? We questioned Consuelo too. She says she knew nothing, that her son deceived her as well. That's a lie. Possibly, but it's hard to prove. I left the station with a heavy heart, so Consuelo and Valentina would go unpunished. Another week passed, and Sebastian still hadn't been found. I went on with my daily life, work, home, seeing Camila. But inside, the fear lingered. What if he came back? What if he tried to take revenge? And then one evening, on my way home from work, I noticed something strange. A car was following me, black, with tinted windows, keeping its distance. I turned right, it did too. I sped up, so did it. I took out my phone and called Camila. Camila, someone's following me. Where are you? I'm driving home. There's a car behind me that won't drop back. Go to the police, right now. I turned around and drove to the station. The car kept following me. When I pulled up to the police building, it suddenly swerved away and left. I went inside and told the duty officer. He wrote down the license plate number I'd managed to memorize and promised to check it. The next day the investigator called. Isabella, the car is registered to Valentina. We summoned her for questioning. She says she was running errands, not following you. That's a lie. She was tailing me on purpose. Prove it. How can we prove it? Cameras, witnesses. For now it's your word against hers. I hung up. So they were still applying pressure, trying to intimidate me. Camila suggested I move in with her for a while. I refused. I wouldn't run from my own home. It was my apartment, my life. But I became more cautious, always looked around me, checked for surveillance, didn't open the door to strangers, kept my phone within reach. A few more days passed. Life slowly returned to its previous rhythm. Work, home, occasional meetups with friends. No wedding. No Sebastian. I was free. But the tension remained inside me. I felt it wasn't over yet. Something was bound to happen. One night I had a strange dream. I was standing in a dark room. A door in front of me. I opened it and saw a long corridor. A person stood at the end. I couldn't see the face, but I felt danger. I woke up in a cold sweat, my heart racing. It was 3 a.m. Darkness outside. I got up, drank some water, tried to calm down. Just a dream, just nerves. But the next day something happened that made me remember the dream. In the morning, when I left my building, there was a note on my car. I unfolded it. You think you've won, but the game is only beginning. I looked around. The courtyard was empty. No one. I took the note and went to the police. The investigator looked at it and put it in the file. Isabella, this is intimidation. They're trying to break you. What should I do? Don't give in. Keep living your normal life. We'll find Sebastian. Sooner or later he'll show up. I left the police station with a heavy feeling. Sooner or later he would show up. But when? And what would he do? In the evening Camila called. Isabella, I found something interesting. Remember the photo in Consuelo's album, the fair-haired woman next to Sebastian? Yes, Consuelo said they were acquaintances. I dug around online and found information. That woman is Valentina. She's known Sebastian not for a year, but for over 5 years. So they've been working together for a long time. Yes, and you know what else? Valentina is a distant relative of Consuelo, a second niece. They're related? Then it's a family business. Consuelo, Sebastian, and Valentina, all together. A chill ran down my spine. So this wasn't just fraud. It was an organized group. Camila, we need to pass this information to the investigator. Already did. He said it's an important piece of evidence. Thank you. I hung up and thought, if they were relatives, the scheme had been refined over years. How many women suffered? 5? 10? More? The next day the investigator called me in again. Isabella, we've found another victim. A woman named Soledad. She was harmed 4 years ago. She sold her apartment and gave the money to Sebastian. He disappeared. She's ready to testify. Excellent. The case is getting stronger. Yes, but there's a problem. We still haven't found Sebastian. He's hiding. He may have left the country. How could he leave? Wouldn't they stop him at the border? They should, but if he has forged documents, he could get through. So he might escape for good? Possibly, but we're continuing the search. I left the station feeling hopeless. Sebastian will vanish, and I'll never see justice. But 2 days later something unexpected happened. Consuelo called me. Isabella, we need to talk. About what? My son. About what happened. Can we meet? Why? I want to explain everything. Please, come. I don't trust you. I understand, but come, it's important. It could be a trap. But what if she really wants to tell the truth? All right, but I won't come to your house. Let's meet at a cafe. Agreed. We met the next day at a cafe downtown. Consuelo came alone, looking tired and older, and sat across from me. Thank you for coming. I'm listening. She sighed. Isabella, I want to tell the truth. Sebastian is a con man. He deceived women for many years, and I knew about it. You helped him? Yes, I helped. I showed forged documents, calmed the victims, covered for him. It's my fault. Why did you do that? Because he's my son. I wanted him to have everything, money, a home, comfort. I thought we were just taking from the rich and giving to the poor, well, to ourselves. You ruined people's lives. I know. I see that now. But back then it seemed normal to me that the women were to blame for trusting a stranger. Why are you telling me this? Because I want to stop. Sebastian has gone too far. He's become aggressive, dangerous. I'm afraid of him. Where is he now? Consuelo paused. I don't know exactly, but he called me yesterday and said he'd be back soon and that he would deal with you. Is that a threat? Yes. Isabella, he's dangerous. He could harm you. What do you suggest? Leave, at least for a while, until they find him. I won't run away from my own home. Then be very careful. Consuelo stood up. I've told you everything I know, but I won't go to the police. He's my son. I can't testify against him. Then why did you tell me all this? So you would be careful. So you'd know who you're dealing with. She left. I remained sitting in the cafe, turning her words over in my mind. Sebastian will come back and deal with me. What does that mean? I called the investigator and told him about the conversation. He promised to increase security measures. The next few days passed in tension. I hardly left the house. I switched to working remotely. Camila came over every evening. And then, a week later, the thing I feared happened. Late at night, the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole. Sebastian. He was standing on the landing, staring straight into the camera. Isabella, open up. We need to talk. I'm not opening. Leave, or I'll call the police. Call them, But listen to me first. I have nothing to say to you. Sebastian smiled. A cold, cruel smile. You think you've won? You're wrong. Your apartment will be mine anyway. Never. We'll see. He turned and left. I stood by the door, trembling, my heart pounding. I called the police. They arrived 10 minutes later. I told them about the visit. They wrote up a report and promised to find Sebastian. But I knew this wasn't the end. Sebastian wouldn't back down. He would come back, and then the real fight would begin. The next day I woke up with a heavy head. I'd slept badly all night, waking at every sound. Sebastian knew where I lived. He could return at any moment. I got up, washed, drank some coffee, and looked out the window. The morning was gray and rainy. People hurried about their business, unaware of the nightmare unfolding in my life. Camila arrived around noon with groceries and said she would stay with me for a few days. Isabella, you shouldn't be alone. Until they find Sebastian, I'll stay with you. Thank you. We sat in the kitchen, drinking tea. Camila chatted about work, trying to distract me. But I wasn't listening. My thoughts circled the same question. What is Sebastian planning? In the evening the investigator called. Isabella, we have news. We've found 2 more of Sebastian's victims, Marina and Teresa. Both are ready to testify. The case is getting serious. If we catch him, he'll do real time. That's good. But where is he now? We don't know. But patrols have been increased. If he shows up, he'll be detained. I hung up and looked at Camila. They've found 2 more victims. Camila nodded. Good. Then he'll definitely be put away. If they catch him, they will, sooner or later. But I wasn't so sure. 3 days passed. No sign of Sebastian. I started to calm down, to think he'd really left the city. Maybe he was scared of the police. Maybe he decided I wasn't worth the risk. Camila relaxed too and said it seemed like it was over, that I could get back to normal life. I wanted to believe it, but a knot of unease sat inside me. Something was wrong. Too quiet, too calm. On the 4th day, something unexpected happened. I was home alone. Camila had gone to work and promised to return in the evening. I was at my laptop checking work emails when I heard a sound. Scratching. At the door. I got up, went to the door, and looked through the peephole. No one. The sound came again. Someone was trying to pick the lock. I grabbed my phone, dialed the police, and someone answered immediately. Someone's trying to break into my apartment. The address is. The dispatcher said a patrol would be there in 5 minutes. I stood by the door with the phone pressed to my ear. The sound stopped. I looked through the peephole again. The landing was empty. 5 minutes later the police arrived. 2 officers examined the door, the landing, the stairwell. They found no one. Isabella, there are signs of tampering on the lock. Someone really did try to open it, but they must have heard a noise and fled. Was it Sebastian? We don't know. There are no cameras in the building, but we'll increase patrols around your house. Thank you. The officers left. I shut the door and put the chain on. My hands were shaking. I called Camila and told her. She said she was coming immediately. She arrived half an hour later, pale and rattled. Isabella, this is it. You can't stay here. Come to my place. No, this is my apartment. I'm not leaving. Then we'll hire security to stand guard at your door. I can't afford that. Security is expensive. Then what? A pause. Options spun through my head. I'll install an extra lock and a camera on the landing so I can see who comes up. Good idea. The next day I called a locksmith. He installed a second, more secure lock. Then he put up a camera on the landing and linked it to my phone. Now I could see everything happening at my door. A few more days passed. No sign of Sebastian, but I knew he was somewhere nearby. I could feel it. A week later, in the evening, just as I was about to go to bed, a notification came to my phone. The camera had detected movement. I opened the app. The landing appeared on the screen. Empty. No one. But a minute later a person appeared. Hood up, face hidden. He walked up to my door, stopped, stood there for a few seconds, then turned and left. I called the police immediately. I explained and sent the recording. The dispatcher said they'd send a patrol. The police arrived 10 minutes later. They watched the footage but couldn't identify the person. The face was covered, the build average, it could have been anyone. But I knew. It was Sebastian. He was checking if I was home, preparing for something. Camila suggested I move in with her for a while. I refused again. I won't hide. If Sebastian wants to settle this, let him try. But inside I was afraid. What if he really decided to do something? 2 days later the investigator called. Isabella, we've received information. Sebastian is in the city. He was seen in the industrial zone. We're setting up an ambush. Hopefully we'll catch him soon. Be careful and don't go out unless necessary. All right. I hung up. So Sebastian was in the city, hiding, waiting for the right moment. That evening I sat by the window, looking down at the street. Rain was pouring down. Street lights shimmered in puddles. The occasional car passed by. And then I saw it, a dark car with tinted windows. It was parked across from my building, engine running. I took a photo of the license plate with my phone and then called the police. The dispatcher said they would run the plate and send a patrol. I waited at the window. The car sat there for about 20 minutes, then slowly pulled away. The police arrived 10 minutes later. I showed the officer the photo of the plate, and he ran it through the system. This car is registered to Valentina, that same one. So she's watching me? Looks like it. We'll contact her and issue a warning. But warnings won't help. They do whatever they want. The officer shrugged. Unfortunately, until they commit a crime, there's not much we can do. But we've documented the surveillance. It'll go into the case file. He left. I was alone again, feeling helpless. They were pressuring me, intimidating me, and there was nothing I could do. Camila called late that evening. Isabella, how are you? All right. Valentina was watching my building. Again? Isabella, this is serious. They won't give up. I know. Maybe you really should leave for a while? To relatives, another city? My mother lived in the provinces with her sister. I could go to her. Wait it out until the police caught Sebastian. All right, I'll go to my mom's for a week or two. Good. Pack tomorrow. I'll drive you to the bus station. Thank you. I went to bed thinking that tomorrow I would leave. I'd finally be safe. But that night I had a dream. I was standing in an empty room. Dark, cold. My grandmother stood before me. She looked just as I remembered her, gray hair, kind eyes, a wrinkled face. Granddaughter, she said softly. Grandma? She came closer and took my hand. I came to warn you. Danger is near, very near. What danger? Grandmother looked me in the eyes. Granddaughter, run from these people immediately. Get up in the morning and go to your mother-in-law's house and you'll see everything, my late grandmother told me in a dream the day before the wedding. I woke up abruptly, gasping for air. My heart was pounding. The dream had been so real I could almost feel my grandmother's hand on mine. I looked at the clock, 5 in the morning, still dark outside. What did that dream mean? The day before the wedding? But the wedding was canceled, or I remembered, the wedding was supposed to be tomorrow, June 21st. I had called it off, but the date remained. Get up in the morning and go to your mother-in-law's house and you'll see everything. Grandma wanted me to go to Consuelo's house. In the morning? Today? Why? What would I see? I got up and went to the window. The street was empty. Dawn was coming slowly. Maybe it was just a dream, overwork, stress. But Grandma had always been right. She always sensed danger. I dressed quickly with jeans, a gray jacket, sneakers. I tied my hair back, took my phone, keys, and bag. I slipped out of the apartment quietly. Camila was asleep on the couch in the living room. I didn't wake her. I'd text her later, after I got back. Outside it was fresh, smelling of rain. I got in the car, started the engine, and drove through the sleeping city. Consuelo's house was on the outskirts, about a 25-minute drive. I drove slowly, thinking through what I was doing, why I was going there, what I hoped to see, but something inside urged me on. Grandma hadn't appeared in my dream for nothing. She came to warn me. When I pulled up to the house, it was about 6 a.m. The street was empty and quiet. I stopped the car about 50 meters away and turned off the engine. And when I pulled up to my future mother-in-law's house, I froze at what I saw. There were 2 cars in the yard. One was that same dark car with tinted windows, Valentina's. The other was an unfamiliar white one. And on the porch sat three people, Sebastian, Consuelo, and Valentina. They were talking. Sebastian was holding some papers. Consuelo was showing him something. Valentina was smoking. I got out of the car quietly and shut the door. I walked closer and hid behind the neighboring fence. From there I could hear their conversation. Everything's ready, Valentina was saying. The documents are signed. All that's left is to get access to the apartment. How do we get access? Sebastian asked. She changed the locks. We'll find a way. Consuelo waved it off. I know a locksmith. He can open any lock. And if she's at home? She won't be. I heard she's planning to leave, to her mother in the provinces. How do you know? Valentina was watching her. She heard her talking to her friend on the phone about the trip. Are you sure? Absolutely. I went cold. How did she know I was planning to leave? I hadn't told anyone but Camila. When she leaves, we'll go into the apartment, Consuelo went on. We'll find the property documents, forge a power of attorney, and transfer the place into our name. I listened in disbelief. They were planning to break into my apartment, forge documents, and sell my home. And if she goes to the police? Everything's clean, like with Esperanza, like with Patricia. Esperanza almost turned us in, but she didn't. She got scared. They all get scared. Isabella will, too. Valentina stubbed out her cigarette. Enough talking. Let's act. Tonight she's supposed to go to the bus station. We'll tail her. As soon as she leaves, we go into the apartment. And the locks? I've already warned the locksmith. He'll be ready. Sebastian nodded. Good. Then tonight it all ends. They got up and went inside. I stood behind the fence, unable to move. So that was their plan. Follow me, wait until I left, break into the apartment, and steal the papers. I had to stop them. But how? I slipped back to the car, got in, took out my phone, and called the investigator. He picked up after a few rings. Hello? A sleepy voice. This is Isabella Navarro. Sorry it's early, but it's urgent. What happened? I told him everything, the dream, the trip to Consuelo's house, the conversation I overheard. The investigator listened in silence. Isabella, are you sure about what you heard? Absolutely. They're planning to rob my apartment tonight. All right, we'll set up an ambush. When they try to get in, we'll catch them in the act. Thank you. But you have to make it look like you're leaving, or they'll get suspicious. I understand. I hung up and drove home. Camila was already awake, sitting in the kitchen with a cup of coffee. Isabella, where were you? I told her everything. Camila listened, eyes wide. Your grandmother saved you? Yes. So what now? I'll pretend I'm leaving, and the police will set up an ambush. Camila nodded. I'll help. We'll pack a suitcase and head to the bus station. Let them think you're really going. We got to work. I packed a suitcase and took my bag. Camila helped, folding clothes. It all looked convincing. At 5 p.m. we left the house. I carried the suitcase. Camila took the bag. We loaded everything into the car and drove to the bus station. On the way I noticed that same dark car. It was behind us, openly tailing us. Camila, they're following. Good. They're taking the bait. We went inside the station, stood by the ticket counter, pretending to buy a ticket, then walked to the platform. Valentina's car was in the parking lot. I saw it from the station window. They're watching, I said. Perfect. Now wait here an hour. Then we'll head home by a different route. We sat in the waiting hall for an hour. Then Camila called an acquaintance and asked him to pick us up at a different exit. He arrived 20 minutes later. We slipped out through a service door, got into his car, and left. Valentina's car stayed in the parking lot. They didn't notice we'd gone another way. Camila's acquaintance drove us back to my place. We went up to the apartment. The investigator was already there with 2 officers. Isabella, everything's ready. We'll hide in the neighboring apartment. As soon as they try to break in, we'll arrest them. Good. And you and your friend will leave. You shouldn't be here during the operation. Where to? To Camila's place. Wait there. I'll call when it's over. Camila and I left and went to her place. All evening I couldn't settle down. I paced the room, stared at my phone, waited for a call. At 10 p.m., the investigator called. Isabella, it went well. We detained 3 of them, Sebastian, Consuelo, and Valentina. They tried to force your lock. We caught them at the scene. They had forged documents and burglary tools on them. Is that true? Yes. Now we have all the evidence. They'll be charged with attempted fraud, unlawful entry, and document forgery. They'll get real sentences. My shoulders dropped. The tension that had built for weeks finally released. Thank you. You're welcome. You can go home, it's safe. I hung up and looked at Camila. She hugged me. It's over. Yes. But I didn't feel joy, only exhaustion. The next day I went to the police station, gave my official statement, and signed the paperwork. The investigator said the case would be sent to court soon. Sebastian, Consuelo, and Valentina were being held in custody. They faced up to 7 years. A week later I met up with Camila. We sat in a cafe, drinking coffee. How do you feel? Camila asked. Tired. Drained. That's understandable, you've been through hell. But you made it. You won. I don't feel like a winner. Why? Because I've lost faith in people. I don't trust anyone anymore. Camila put her hand on mine. It will pass with time. You'll meet a good person. I don't want to meet anyone. I want to be alone. And I meant it. A month later the trial began. I attended the hearings and testified. Esperanza and Patricia came too. We sat together, supporting one another. Sebastian acted brazenly, denied everything, said it was a misunderstanding and he'd done nothing wrong. Consuelo cried and begged forgiveness. Valentina stayed silent, eyes on the floor. The trial lasted 2 months. In the end, the verdict was announced. Sebastian received 6 years in a high-security penal colony. Consuelo, for years suspended due to her age and health, with a travel restriction. Valentina, 5 years in a general regime colony. I sat in the courtroom listening to the sentence. I felt no satisfaction, only emptiness. After the hearing, Esperanza came up to me. Thank you, Isabella. Because of you, he'll finally be punished. You're welcome. Patricia thanked me too. We exchanged contacts and promised to stay in touch. I stepped out of the courthouse. It was autumn, leaves were falling from the trees, and a cold wind was blowing. I walked slowly, thinking about the past months. Life went on. I returned to work. Colleagues asked what had happened. I kept it brief, personal problems, resolved. Friends called and invited me out. I declined. I didn't want to see anyone. Camila came by once a week. We sat in the kitchen, drank tea, and talked. She tried to cheer me up, but I felt indifferent to everything. One evening, as I sat by the window watching the street, my mother called. We hadn't spoken in about 2 months. Isabella, darling, how are you? I'm fine, Mom. I heard you'd been having problems? I had. It's all settled now. Come to me. You'll rest and regain your strength. I thought for a moment, maybe I really should leave? Change the scenery? All right, Mom. I'll come for a week. I went to the province a few days later. My mother met me at the house and hugged me tightly. My dear girl, you've lost so much weight. I'm tired, Mom. I know. You'll rest here. The countryside was quiet and peaceful. I walked through the fields, helped my mother with the household, read books. Little by little, I began to recover. One evening we sat on the porch drinking tea. My mother watched me closely. Isabella, what's wrong with you? You seem so empty. I don't know, Mom. I'm just tired of people. Not all people are bad. I know, but I don't want to take risks anymore. Mom sighed. Your grandmother always said, life is a risk, but without risk there is no life. Grandma, she saved me, Mom. Came to me in a dream. Warned me. Mom nodded. She was always by your side. And she still is. She's watching over you. Tears began to flow on their own. For the first time in a long while, I allowed myself to cry. Mom hugged me, stroking my head. Cry it out, my girl, let it all out. I cried for a long time. All the pent-up emotions, fears, and resentments poured out. When I calmed down, Mom said, life goes on, Isabella. You're young and healthy, There's still so much good ahead. I don't want to get married. Then don't. Live for yourself and enjoy each day. I returned to the city a week later. I felt a little better. Not completely healed, but alive. Camila met me at my building. Well, did you rest? Yes, a little. Good. Come on, I made dinner. We went up to my apartment, and Camila set the table. We ate and talked. She told me about work and her family. I listened, adding a comment now and then. When Camila left, I was alone again. I sat on the couch, stared at the ceiling, and thought about life. Sebastian was in prison. Consuelo, with a suspended sentence, remained at home, and Valentina was behind bars too. I was free. I had an apartment, a job, my health. I had one. So why did I feel like I had lost? Because I had lost faith in people, in love, in happiness. I got up and went to the window. Below, people hurried about their business, living ordinary lives. They fell in love, got married, divorced, fell in love again. And I didn't want that anymore. I didn't want to risk my heart. I didn't want to go through what I had gone through again. I would get a cat or a dog. I would work, save money, go on vacations. Alone, calmly, safely. But something clenched inside me. Was this what I had wanted from life? No. I had wanted a family, children, love. But now everything had changed. 6 months later, life settled into a routine, work, home, occasional meetups with friends. I bought a cat and named her Marquise. She was ginger, fluffy, and affectionate. With her, I didn't feel quite so alone. Sometimes Camila hinted that it was time for me to start dating again. I brushed it off. I don't want to. I'm fine as I am. But that was a lie. I wasn't fine. I was just afraid. One day I ran into Patricia by chance at a store. We started talking. How are you, Patricia? Fine. I got married again, to a good man. We live quietly and peacefully. Congratulations. And you, Isabella? I'm alone. Alone? Why? I don't want to take risks. Patricia looked at me sadly. Isabella, not all men are like Sebastian. There are good people. I know, but I'm afraid. I understand. I was afraid too. But then I met him and realized that a life without love isn't a life. Maybe. We said goodbye. I walked home thinking about her words. A life without love isn't a life. But I wasn't ready to open up again. A year after the trial, I was still living alone. I worked, came home, fed the cat, and watched series. On weekends I cleaned the apartment, went shopping, sometimes met with Camila. One evening my mother called me. Isabella, how are you? I'm fine, Mom. Sweetheart, I'm worried about you. You're all alone. That isn't right. I'm fine as I am. No, you're not. I can hear it in your voice. You're unhappy. Mom, I don't want to talk about it. Isabella, listen to me. Your grandmother didn't save you so you would shut yourself off from the world. She wanted you to live a full life. I am living. No, you're existing. That's not the same thing. I hung up. Mom was right. I was existing, not living. But what could I do? How could I learn to trust again? I didn't know the answer. Another 6 months passed. One day at work, my colleague Carmen approached me. We weren't close, but we sometimes chatted. Isabella, I have a favor to ask. I'm listening. I know a man, a good person. He's an architect, recently divorced, looking to meet someone. Would you consider meeting him? I wanted to refuse, but Carmen looked at me with such hope that I couldn't. All right, let's give it a try. A week later we met at a cafe. His name was Andres, a man of about 38, tall, with kind eyes. We talked for over an hour. He was calm, thoughtful, with a subtle sense of humor. When we were saying goodbye, he asked, maybe we could meet again? A pause. Inside me, fear and hope battled. Then I nodded. All right. We started seeing each other, once a week, then more often. Andres was patient. He didn't rush me or pressure me. He was simply there. Gradually, I began to open up. I told him what had happened. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said, Isabella, I'm sorry you had to go through that, but not everyone is like that. Give me a chance to prove it. I looked at him. There was sincerity in his eyes. All right, let's try. Another 6 months passed. Andres really did turn out to be a good man. He didn't demand, manipulate, or deceive. He was simply there. I began to feel again, to trust, to love. But the fear didn't go away completely. I still checked, analyzed, waited for the catch. Andres understood and didn't take offense. He waited. One evening we were sitting at my place, drinking tea. Andres looked at me seriously. Isabella, I want to ask, are you ready for a serious relationship? I don't know, Andres. I'm afraid. I understand. But I'm not Sebastian. I won't hurt you. How can I know that? He took my hand. You can't, just like I can't know that you won't hurt me. But we can try. Together. I looked at him. Yes, he was right. Life is a risk, but without risk there is no life. All right, let's try. And for the first time in a long while, I smiled for real. But the end of my story won't be a fairy tale, because life isn't a fairy tale. Andres turned out to be a good person, but it didn't work out between us. A year later we separated, peacefully, amicably. We simply realized we weren't right for each other. I was alone again. But now I wasn't as afraid. I understood that I could cope, that life goes on, no matter what. Sebastian is serving his sentence. Sometimes I think about him, not with anger, just think. What is he doing there? What does he think about? Consuelo died 2 years after the trial. Her heart couldn't take it. I felt a little sorry for her, but only a little. Valentina was released after 4 years. She moved to another city. I never heard about her again. Esperanza and Patricia are living their lives. We exchange messages sometimes. They're happy. Esperanza had a child. Patricia did, too. Soledad found a good job and is saving for her own apartment. And I'm still alone. I'm 31. I work, live in my own apartment, and have a cat. Sometimes I go on dates, but nothing serious. Maybe someday I'll meet the one, or maybe I won't, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm living, truly living, not afraid, not hiding. Grandma didn't save me so I would merely exist. She wanted me to live a full life. And I'm trying, every day. Sometimes at night I dream of my grandmother. She stands by my bed and smiles. I wake with a feeling of peace. She is near, always near, protecting me. And I know, everything will be all right, sooner or later. But there won't be a fairy tale. There will be life, real, complicated, unpredictable, and I'm ready for it.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe to the channel.